it's caused a lot of uncertainty and anxiety. So on January the 10th, there was a press conference in DC where Trump says the US should consider taking Canada economically. He talked about applying economic pressure on Canada. Canadian leaders united against the US tariffs. February the 4th is when Canada's Prime Minister, and Conservative Pierre Poilievre both slammed the US stance. Canada's existing unemployment rate in Canada to 8% by year end. Now the Canadian dollar also could get, is also expected to fall by 67 cents US from just 70 cents now. With the U.S. administration not backing down on tariffs, it doesn't look good for Canada. Nice thing. Have you already started seeing impact of tariffs in your particular industry? Have you already seen, are seeing the ramifications of this whole tariff uncertainty in your neighborhood? Hey everybody, welcome back to Canadians here, my YouTube channel where we talk about all things happening in Canada, social events, economic events. Let's get down right to it. The topic of today's vlog is tariffs, tariff wars that are happening between the United States and Canada. Now I know that this has been in the news a lot and everyone has been talking about the ramifications. And as a Canadian, Canadians are feeling the impact of tariffs in a variety of different ways. I mean, it's still, early days, but it has already shocked the industry. It has already shocked business decision makers. Canadians are not feeling happy about it. How does this whole thing turn out? We don't know, but let's have a look at what's happened so far. Let's take a closer look at some of the some of the detailed events that have led up to the imposition of tariffs, Donald J. Trump's mindset, Canadian response. Let's get down to all these topics in today's vlog. So don't go anywhere. Make sure to watch till the very end. Lots of people are saying, is this fair? Is this fair? Is this a fair deal? The U.S. imposition of tariffs on Canada, is it fair? Or is it economic bullying? I've made some notes here that I wanted to share with everyone. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to give you a little bit of background of the U.S.-Canada trade relationship. Now, keep in mind, Canada is one of the United States' major trading partners. Trade is deeply integrated, especially in sectors such as automotive, agriculture, aluminum, and I've made some notes here so I can, give you a well-researched output on this particular topic. And also, don't forget, there is the USMCA, which is the United States Mexico-Canada trade agreement. That is the backbone of the trade relations and the decisions that were made in terms of how trade would go ahead between these three countries. And all the three countries are party to it. Now, the history of U.S. tariffs on Canada. Let's talk a little bit about the history. In 2018, there were tariffs imposed on steel and aluminum, 25% on steel, 10% on aluminum. They were retaliatory tariffs imposed by Canada on U.S. goods. However, back in 2019, the parties got together and, after negotiations, the tariffs were taken away. One of the core disagreements that the U.S. has about Canadian dairy supply is the high tariffs on U.S. dairy. That's one of their main ones. Now, what's happening recently? What's the latest update? Well, as you know, so let's go back and talk a little bit about the history of the current scenario of tariffs. Donald J. Trump got elected as the President of the United States. On December the 15th last year, he speaks at a rally in Michigan criticizing Canada's unfair trade practices. Canadians were still not sure whether tariffs were going to, whether we were going to get hit with tariffs or not. And, it was still early days. People thought, that this is going to get resolved and, we're not going to get hit with tariffs. And this is where the fun begins. I shouldn't say fun. It's been traumatic for Canadians and it's been, it's caused a lot of uncertainty and anxiety. So on January the 10th, there was a press conference in DC where Trump says the US should consider taking Canada economically. He talked about, applying economic pressure on Canada. Canadian businesses did start stockpiling U.S. goods, fearing retaliation. This is January of 2025, and the whole tariff thread discussion began. Now, in February 2025, Canada pushed back. Canadian leaders united against the U.S. tariffs. February the 4th is when Canada's Prime Minister, and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre both slammed the U.S. stance. Canada's existing Prime Minister Mark Carney and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Canadian businesses also urged diplomatic talks, but tensions had already begun rising. Now, there was a lot of consumer backlash. Canadians started boycotting U.S. brands. Canadians also started booing in the national anthem, which, I don't know if this was a good way to go about it. Understandably speaking, Canadians were not happy about things. They were not happy about the way things were turning out. And what happens in March 2025 this month? Trump officially imposes tariffs on March 4th, 25% tariffs on all Canadian imports and 10% tariff on energy products. What was his justification? Canada must strengthen its border security to stop fentanyl. Now, and this is where I sort of, start disagreeing with the United States point of view, is that up till now I agree we should make the border secure, we should stop the fentanyl. Canada stepped up its efforts. They spend millions of dollars in surveillance drones, in making sure that the border becomes secure. And it did have an effect in terms of, the amount of fentanyl that was coming in. That dropped significantly. The border definitely became a little bit more, there was a lot of attention paid to the border. Now, one thing I have to praise Trump for is the fact that Canada should have done these things even before they got hit with tariffs, even before this whole discussion began. Why did we wait? God, oh God, why did we wait till now? Why? Why give Trump an opening? And we did that anyways. So what was the impact on the markets, though, in March? Markets took a hit. Stock markets did not like the business uncertainty. They did take a hit. Supply chains panicked. Now, remember, we live in a world where supply chains are highly integrated. So when things like these happen, when announcements happen where tariffs are basically taxes, right? They're paid not by now, when you get goods into your country, it's not the other country that pays the taxes. It's your own customers, eventually, your own company, your own businesses within the country that end up paying taxes, higher taxes to import those products. The idea with tariffs is that it would foster manufacturing within the country, but eventually, those products that do get, passed on to the customer. So it's not the other country, it's not the, the country that you're importing products from that get hit with tariffs. So just so everyone knows about that. And I'm sure everyone has definitely become much more well-versed about tariffs and how they impact because of this whole scenario that we have been facing in the past 2-3 months. Now, what happens when Trump announces tariffs on March 4th? Canada strikes back on March 13th. Trudeau announces 25% tariffs on $29.8 billion worth of U.S. goods. The targeted industries were agriculture, manufacturing, and consumer goods. There's a lot of apps that are starting to pop up in Canada that are encouraging people to buy Canadian products, to buy local products, and what happens in April? Fast forward to April. Well, what will happen in April is what people are wondering. On April the 2nd, the tariffs will hit Canada with full force. Car prices might surge in the United States. International automakers have been rushing shipments to the U.S. before this deadline hurts. We don't know what's going to happen. Nations and countries all around the world are wondering what's going to happen. Now, as of now, there is a pause on tariffs in Canada. Now, something interesting has also happened recently. On March 20th, there have been retaliatory tariffs on canola oil, canola meal, and pea products. And those tariffs have come from China, and they've been imposed on Canada. 100% tariffs. And on April 2nd, there is, the U.S. has said that they will be imposing tariffs on Canadian products. It's still pending. April 2nd is the key date here. We're all going to focus on what happens on April 2nd. And Canada has said that they are going to retaliate on an additional $95 billion worth of U.S. goods. So that's the latest timeline. And, Doug Ford and Lutnick, they were, the Commerce Secretary of the U.S. and Ontario Premier, they were going on a verbal, Doug Ford was going at the United States. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, he was threatening to shut down the electricity in the United States, and the U.S. said that this would be war. This would, if you do that. So things have gotten very much animated. Things have gotten to a level where, they were going to go out of control, but then Howard Lutnick said, let's have a chat, and then they agreed to temporarily pause tariffs till April 2nd. So even though there's a pause right now, Canada has imposed its side of tariffs. It's going to be really hard for the Canada-U.S. trade relationship to get back to normal. That's for sure. What are the impacts of tariffs on Canada? Well, they have already started impacting the steel industry. Hamilton, Ontario is known for producing steel, and there have been layoffs in that particular industry recently. Okay, so it has started to impact Canada. Now, what about Canada's already, sort of recession-like state? Canada was already not doing well economically before Trump's tariffs. So, the impact would be, well, it could be more disastrous. And I don't want to induce panic, but I want people to know that there is a chance that we might go into a deeper recession this year. Would there be government support? Government's talking about printing more money. Printing more money is definitely not the right thing to do. Tariffs might further slow Canada's housing market, and the pressure will build as the price of building materials will increase because of the retaliatory tariffs and, of course, the weaker Canadian dollar. So what are some of the predictions? Well, according to BMO, the gross domestic product for 2025, it has been lowered by 1.5 percentage points to 0.5%. The economic downturn could lead to more than 100,000 net job losses. It could push the already high unemployment rate in Canada to 8% by year end. Now, the Canadian dollar also could get, is also expected to fall by 67 cents US from just 70 cents now. With the U.S. administration not backing down on tariffs, it doesn't look good for Canada. And, put down in the comments, what do you guys think? Have you already started seeing impact of tariffs in your particular industry? Have you already seen, are seeing the ramifications of this whole tariff uncertainty in your neighborhood, in your industry, in your jobs? Let me know in the comments. I'd like to know your viewpoints on this. Now, the duties on steel and aluminum exports that took effect March 12th will have a moderate effect on the economy, but they will be far-reaching effects if the industry gets hit with tariffs on April the 2nd. And that could sort of prolong the recession. Now, remember, the effect of tariffs is not immediate, right? It takes a little bit of time. But once the effect starts going into the economy, eventually they will be far-reaching effects. RBC, what do their economists say? RBC, as the economists continue to expect that blanket tariffs will be avoided because of the damage that they would do to the U.S. economy. So they're saying that they're assuming that maybe that it would be that things get sorted out and maybe we don't get hit with tariffs. Ultimately, this is the common opinion here. It's uncertain. Things are uncertain. What does that mean for small, medium businesses? They're hesitating to make big decisions. What does that mean for the average Canadian? Well, let's just hope for the best, but let's prepare for the worst as well. Okay. Now, if you have liked this video, if you have liked the amount of research that I've put into this particular vlog, I try and make sure to give an independent perspective on the events that are happening, economic events, social events in Canada. If you like this particular vlog, please show your support. I really need your support. I'll try and do more research, more efforts to bring you the latest content. Until next time, bye-bye from Canadian Sia, and just remember, keep trekking.